So they're expediting it. They're certainly going as fast as possible, but they are also going about it delicately. A tough operation handled by some of CFD's best, the special ops teams. If you can see that fire rig right there, on the other side, opposite the building, is a large window frame. Chris, I want to ask you.
On the window frame by the truck.
If Chris, can you give me an idea? I mean, if you've got a window frame blown nearly all the way across the street, a full window frame, which was obviously part of this building, how far, just eyeballing it, yards or feet, are you guessing this propulsive, explosive force, how far it blew some of this debris?
Well, if you're measuring basically across the street, you're over 100 feet away from the building. That window frame, and I'm referring to the actual debris that's on the roof of the building across the street. There may be other debris that was lightweight, like window frames that got broken and lofted, since they're predominantly wood with a little thin strip of metal in there, the runner to allow those double hung windows to go up and down. That window frame, it's a testament to the fact that there was an overpressure that was widespread. It was distributed over that entire wall and pushed that window frame. Instead of shattering it, it pushed it out laterally as one unit. So that shows the uniformity of that overpressure that took place. So when the explosion, quote unquote, happened, that overpressure that blew everything out laterally was distributed over a wide area, which means it encompassed more than just one room. So that is why the roof actually lifted up. You can see this is kind of this building is shaped like a giant capital letter I, and part of the upper portion of that I has been, it looks like it's chewed away, but actually the roof membrane allowed the roof to stay together. It opened up kind of like if you purse your lips and your upper lip kind of curves up to the top. That roof went up during the blast, and then after the wall blew out, it came back down and settled to where that wall used to occupy.
Chris Habermel,
So
thank you. Just getting some information in now from the Chicago Fire Department. An update now. We have 8 injured. It has now gone from 6 to 8 injured. 4 of those who were in this 35-unit building when it suffered some type of explosion at around 9 a.m. this morning. 4 of the 8 are in critical condition. The other 4 are in less than critical. Varies. A couple are in serious. One I'm told is good. So 8 injured. 4 critical, 4 less than critical. Our Maribel Gonzalez was on the scene earlier, spoke with an ear witness, a neighbor to the event. If we have that sound, can we listen to it?
I live right here on the corner, and I was on my phone laying in the bed, and I heard a big explosion, and then my bed shook, almost like an earthquake. And so I immediately came out, and the windows was busted, and you could smell gas, like real strong gas in the air. And then I seen that the building was exploded. Was, you know, debris everywhere. People was running from here and there. They brought a couple bodies out. So yeah, I thought it was a terrorist attack. I did, because it was just September 11th. So I instantly thought like somebody attacked the building. So I was just praying for everybody, making sure everybody was okay, you know, because they're like my neighbors, you know. We live in this neighborhood, so just scared. Do you know?
Quite a description there. Earthquake, terrorist attack. That's what she thought it was. We don't know what it was, but we also know she smelled gas, which we thought of from moment one, seeing the scene there. Seeing the propulsive force that spilled those bricks and mortar, shot them nearly across the street, 100 feet, maybe more, says our Chris Habermel. We were told we would be hearing from the Chicago Fire Department the latest. We were told that was going to take place at 10:55. Have yet to hear from them. We will get that immediately to you when it does happen. You're looking at the scene. This explosion happened at around 9 a.m. The address 5601 West End. In about a minute, we're going to wrap here. Going to hand it over to our friend Marie Saavedra for the 11 a.m. news. This will be topic A. Statement from the mayor saying, "My thoughts are with those who were injured and displaced in the building collapse." Had a statement from the owner. We know the building has failed 12 inspections over the past 10 years. These are the pictures now. We're going to stay on it. CBS 2 investigator Megan Hickey also on the story. We will hear more from her. We're going to bid farewell, but be back soon on the stream. Our 11 o'clock news starts in a moment.
Breaking right now at 11, debris scattered after an explosion this morning in South Austin. We know at least 8 people have been hurt in this building collapse. We are live at the scene as firefighters search right now for other victims. Good morning. I'm Marie Saavedra. Jim Williams is off today. Thank you for being with us here at 11 and streaming with us this morning on our digital network, CBS News Chicago. We want to start with that breaking news we have followed throughout the last few hours as an explosion leads to a building collapse in South Austin. We know at least 8 people have been hurt. That's the latest information from the Chicago Fire Department. CBS 2's Maribel Gonzalez live for us at the scene. This is at Central and West End. That is where firefighters continue the important work to see if anyone else is still in that building. Maribel.
Yeah, that's right. That's a special team of first responders inside the building right now looking for potentially any other people that could be still inside and still trapped inside under the debris. We're told they are checking room by room, but I want you to take a look. Still a very heavy scene here surrounding that 4-story apartment building near the corner of Washington and Central. As you can see, total destruction to the 4th floor and the roof of the building. In the ground, the fallen bricks covering the cars parked just outside of it. Fire chief speaking to us just moments ago. That special team is inside right now. They are checking every room. They're tasked with that due to the dangerous and compromised state of the structure. We do know at least 8 people were injured and taken to the hospital. This did happen at around 9 a.m. We still don't know the cause of that, but neighbors here told us it smelled strongly of gas immediately following the sound of the explosion. A sound so loud, they tell us, it literally shook one of the residents' bed who lives a block away. We also spoke to a woman who lives right across the street from the building. She said her bed shook when she heard that explosion. Terrified, she ran outside to see what had happened, and this is a little bit of what she told us.
I was on my phone laying in the bed and I heard a big explosion and then my bed shook, almost like an earthquake. And so I immediately came out and the windows was busted and you could smell gas, like real strong gas in the air. And then I seen that the building was exploded, was, you know, debris everywhere. People was running from here and there. They brought a couple bodies out. So yeah.
What was your reaction? I mean, seeing something
I thought it was a terrorist attack.
Yeah, that sounds so loud. She said she thought it was a terrorist attack, and it definitely looks like a very grave scene here as bricks are scattered everywhere, glass is shattered all over the place, and they're not letting us get too much closer due to the dangerous condition of that building. This morning, we're also hearing from the building owner, West End LLC, managed by Urban Alternatives. They have not pinpointed the cause of this explosion, but they said they are concerned with the health and well-being and safety of their residents, and they're doing everything to cooperate with emergency services and first responders to best support the residents living inside of the building. Neighbors here tell us a lot of families living inside of that building. We also just heard from Mayor Lori Lightfoot, who says she's devastated by the news and is also praying for the safety of the people living inside. We are expecting the fire department to speak to us briefly to give us more details on what could have caused this explosion and what's happening exactly inside of the building at this moment. We're in Austin, live in Austin. Maribel Gonzalez, CBS 2 News.
Maribel, thank you. We'll get back to you as soon as we hear from CFD. Thank you for that look on the ground. Now we want to look from above. We're going up to Chopper 2, where Chris Haberbell has been over the scene. Chris, can you give us, from your vantage point, the scope of what we're looking at here and what it tells us about what may have been a blast to start this issue in the first place?
Well, indeed, Marie, what you're looking at here is you've got a very large acreage, 35-unit, 4-story, ordinary constructed residential structure that has been severely compromised by an overpressure that demolished 3/4 of the top floor on the east side of the building. So what you're looking at is actually the upper floor has completely been pancaked by the roof. The roof pancaked down after being lifted up by the explosion, while the forward wall, the eastern exposure wall, blew out into and across the street. In the foreground, down underneath the banner where it says South Austin there's actually, and Derek, if you could tilt down just a little bit, we'll show you some of the debris on the building across the street. There's actually parts of window frames and other light masonry items that have actually made it completely across the street on top of the building on the other side. It's actually gone up and over the parapet wall and been lofted and has come down, rained down onto the top of that structure there. So obviously a very large propulsive force, a lateral force. It blew the debris out in kind of a fan pattern away from that 4th floor area. Firefighters are operating, you can see on the upper right corner of our screen, right there at West End and Central. They're in the safe zone, a little pie-shaped section that is out of the collapse zone, which is basically anything in front of the building. You also noticed in our live shot there at ground level, there are charged hose lines all over the place. If in fact, and I couch that as a potential, if in fact this was a gas explosion, and this has all the earmarks of a gas explosion, the damage is right, the location is right, the overpressure is correct for a large expansive force that would be provided by a momentary ignition of gas when it reached its flammable range. If in fact this was gas, you could still have that source of gas leaking into other compartments on this building. So that's why you have charged hose lines. That's why your trench and collapse rescue guys are going through there. Your special operations trained personnel from the Chicago Fire Department are in there with shoring timbers, air shores, hydraulics, what have you, and working very slowly from the non-compromised or the good side of the building on the alley side toward the bad part of the building that has been severely compromised on the street side. Going very methodically, very carefully through here. 35 units is a lot of space to check. You've got stairwells, you've got bathrooms, you've got closets, you've got bedrooms, you've got living rooms, you've got kitchen areas. All of those things, including the kitchen areas especially, if this was a gas explosion, you've got gas ranges, you've got other sources of ignition that were potentially in there. Of course, the gas service by now, utilities would have been shut off to this building unless there could be a valve that was compromised that doesn't allow that to happen. Don't believe that that's the case. Guys are inside there actively searching right now. You can't see that from this angle because we're looking at the compromised portion of the building. But inside there, very methodically, they're going through from the bad floor all the way down to the first floor. So top to bottom, bottom to top, making sure you're doing a primary and a secondary search. Life safety is all important. When the first companies arrived on the scene, saw the open and compromised building, got all of the people that could be immediately identified as injured off to advanced care. So great work by the fire department getting everybody out of here. Next thing, you've got a mass casualty bus, and basically what that is to get people into one area. It's a hot day. It's a humid day. There's been a trauma out here. These people are going through a lot, the residents that are displaced by this, and you don't want them standing out on the street. That does two things for you. That keeps them safe, keeps their kind of mental health a little bit more stable because they're being seen by professionals here on the scene, firefighters, medics, human resources, they're all out here, or human services are out here,
right,
and basically taking care of those folks. You got to keep them cool, keep them calm, and more importantly, keep them together so you know where they're at.
Chris, you touched on the search. Obviously, that is a key factor right now for anyone else who might still be in that building. Briefly, can you talk about some of the tools and strategies that these special ops crews are going to use to see if anyone is still inside?
Sure thing. A bunch of the things that are going to happen here. This is a multi-tiered effort. First of all, you're working to preserve any potential evidence. Obviously, the building is all evidence, so you're trying to not move as much as possible unless you have somebody that you have to rescue. Risk a lot to save a lot, risk a little to save a little. A special operations division, these guys are specially trained in collapse rescue, so they're inside with what we call air shores, rams, knowing how to use timbers to cut them with hand tools, with saws and whatnot, to make sure that the walls are shored up. You could have stud walls on the inside that have been compromised that could fall down. You're immediately in recognition of any kind of sagging floors, because you could have load-bearing walls that have been compromised. Another important tool is what we call the TIC, the thermal imaging camera. You can go inside there and stand back and scan a room, and human bodies, you know, we're almost 100 degrees, each one of us, so that basically provides a very definitive heat signature, even if you can't see that person. If they're buried in rubble,
right,
a 2x4 is not nearly going to be as hot as a human being, so you can see them in any kind of a collapse. So that is what is happening right now that you can't see on the interior of the building.
Chris Habergill, we always appreciate your context with what first responders are doing at any given moment. Thank you for that and for this look from above. We'll surely check back with you shortly. But we want to bring in CBS News' Brad Edwards right now. He's been covering this on our stream all morning, and now, Brad, we're looking into inspection reports from the building. I'm especially curious to hear about this as we hear from the owner of the building saying they are so concerned for the people who are living inside.
Yeah, getting a statement from the owner earlier today saying indeed there is concern, and also the first one to point out that there was indeed an explosion. Want to talk about some other investigators on scene. We know CPD bomb and art. I think we're going to want to go to this. Let's listen to the Chicago Fire Department first official press conference since the explosion there at 9 a.m. Let's listen in.
Furman, and that's spelled M-A-R-C-F-E-R-M-A-N. I am the Deputy Fire Commissioner. Okay, so at approximately 0900 hours this morning, we got a call for a still alarm. Companies were dispatched. Upon arrival, our first arriving unit was our battalion chief. He called for a collapse response. Observed that there was some sort of explosion and a partial collapse of the upper floor of a residential building. Companies responded. He escalated the alarm to a still-in box and also called for a hazardous material response, level 1. Due to the size of the building, number of patients, victims, EMS Plan 2 was requested, which is 10 ambulances. We had approximately 135 personnel on the scene, and that's suppression, special ops, and EMS. We had 8 transports, and that included 1 victim from across the street, a building across the street. Various hospitals, different conditions. I don't have that update for you right now. Right now, we don't know what caused this incident. It's still under investigation. We did call for the gas company to come and shut the gas off, the electricity, water department, OEMC, building department is all on the scene. We have displaced residents. We don't know how many at the time. What else? Due to the condition of the building, it called for a technical sort of to search the entire building. The upper floors, it was compromised. So we had to get our technical experts in here to shore up with struts to make sure we didn't leave any victims underneath any of the debris. A lot of debris to remove. We're still in the process of doing that, but they had to shore up the upper floors to search for possible victims in this collapse of pretty much the third floor on one side of the building. That's pretty much all I have. We're still ongoing with our operations. Right now, we don't have any more victims, and so that's all I have for you right now. Thank you.
Confident you got everybody out?
Right now, we feel like we're confident we got everybody out. But right now, the air quality is good. The gas is shut off, like I say. We've got area arrays set up. Our metering has been negative so far.
The nature of the
No, I do not. I'm sorry. I think the building department mentioned probably 35 units. So searches are still ongoing. Our primary, our secondary is complete. We're in the process of a final search. But like I say, the fourth floor is compromised. We also searched the exposure building to the south here. That was negative. And we also searched the building across the street where we had a victim transported.
What about the nature of the injuries? Can you describe that?
I'm sorry?
The nature of the injuries.
Various injuries. I've heard burns to traumatic injuries. So
It will be related to gas.
I don't know that, but we had the building department on site. I'm sure they're going to conduct their investigation and do a structural analysis of the building.
People that were in.
No, we're keeping everybody out of the collapse zone right now.
People that live in the building said that they did smell gas this morning before the explosion. Is that what you're hearing as well?
I have no knowledge of what happened prior.
Were the people conscious who were brought out?
I can't answer that. They were transported early on.
Another witness told me that they were doing work in the building. Any idea on that?
I have no knowledge. That'll probably all be part of the investigation.
You said the third.
Just out of range of debris falling.
So all of the folks that live in the buildings that are adjacent are going to...
We're going to shut down the entire area, access to this area, so nobody will be allowed in close proximity of the structure.
You said the third floor collapsed as well? Is that, was that the fourth floor?
Fourth floor. I'm sorry, fourth floor. I can't answer that, but we're just maintaining a safety distance so that we don't get injured anymore. So thanks, guys.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, guys.
We've been listening to the latest update from Deputy Fire Commissioner Mark Furman. He tells us today that he confirms in this press conference, the first time we're hearing from Chicago Fire, that this call came in, and once their first firefighter was on scene, they said there was some sort of explosion. Right now, we know 8 people have been taken to the hospital. 1 person was hurt, and they were in the building across the street. So that gives you a sense of how big this blast was. Of those who were hurt, 4 were critical. The Deputy Fire Commissioner there describing those injuries as anything from burns to traumatic injuries. At this point, a first search and a second search have been completed. They're still doing a third, but right now, CFD is confident that everybody is out of that building. That is huge news for the people that are so concerned about those who are living in those 35 units inside that building in South Austin. All eyes on this neighborhood right now, and that includes the eyes of Mayor Lori Lightfoot. She is closely monitoring that situation. She released a statement earlier today, just a few minutes ago, saying in part that my thoughts are with those who were injured and displaced in the building collapse in the Austin neighborhood. We must also thank the brave men and women of the Chicago Fire Department who are working to abate those dangerous conditions that we know are so delicate. The top floors of that building, the top floor, that 4th floor, has collapsed. We know the 3rd one looks threatened. And I want to send it back to Brad Edwards. We were talking earlier, Brad, you and the CBS 2 investigators have been looking into the records of this building. What are they telling us right now?
Okay, Marie, lot to get to about these inspection reports. Also want to tell you on the scene there, though, just FYI, we know that the CPD bomb and arson unit is out there. We know that the federal arm, they're basically twin agency at the federal level, the ATF, Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms, also on scene. That doesn't mean something nefarious happened. Doesn't mean negligence was involved. Maybe a vis maior, a force majeure, an act of God. We're not sure what happened, but we know they're on scene, and we also know, pointedly, as you just spoke about, who's on scene is the building department. Buildings aren't supposed to explode. Buildings aren't supposed to collapse. This building in question, we know, has a questionable building record. It has failed 12 inspections. All of its inspections, it has failed, 12 of them, over the past 10 years. I'm looking deeper into these inspection reports, which we've got a request in for now. Also looking at them is our investigator, CBS News' Megan Hickey. We know one of the failed inspections talks about the connection of some type of gas appliance. This was in 2018. We believe today, at least all appearances are, that the explosion was caused by some igniter along with gas. A neighbor there, an ear witness to the explosion, said the place reeked of gas immediately after the explosion. Again, the building in question failed its last 12 inspections over 10 years. In January of 2017 and February of 2018. They were cited for, quote, failing to repair or replace defective or out-of-service smoke detectors and operate continuously. That's end quote. It's a direct quote from one of the findings from the building department. The building department, one of many departments on scene right now, of course, looking to answer questions, as there are so many at this hour, just 2 hours after that building, 35-unit building, suffered an explosion in the Austin neighborhood. Marie will keep on looking into that and keep you apprised when we find out more. Let's send it back now to you.
Brad, thank you so much. We want to wrap this briefly before we take a quick break. We'll continue to follow this breaking news. 8 people rushed to the hospital. 4 are in critical condition, working on that number right now. We will bring you updates as they become available, starting on the other side of this break. We will get back to the scene in South Austin of that building collapse in just a minute. I want to bring you the other top stories of the day. A 3-year-old boy pulled from Lake Michigan. Emergency crews rushing that child to the hospital where he is in critical condition. But we are now learning that he may not have fallen in that water by accident. CBS News' Asal Razai live at Lurie Children's with the latest. Asal?
Yeah, Marie, we have learned some shocking details in the last couple of hours. Police sources say it was the child's aunt that pushed him into the water. We are told there is video evidence that shows her doing so. I want to show you video of the scene that we have from yesterday. You can see a massive police presence near the north end of Navy Pier there after someone called 911 to report a child floating in the water around 1 o'clock yesterday afternoon. The boy went underwater by the time emergency crews arrived. Police originally saying this could be accidental, but after talking to witnesses and looking at surveillance video, it seems their investigation is taking a turn.
I have the aunt in my possession right now.